Welcome to another Azure webinar. So today we are continuing the webinar we had in the middle of summer. So the one which was just recorded. The webinar at that time we created, let's say, some virtual machines and some basic networks, but they were not connected anywhere. So today we will have this agenda. We'll now tackle to how to connect the networks we created in the Azure back to our data center. So probably you ask why, so I will explain a little bit more why in a few more slides. And then we have, of course, typically we have multiple choices to connect. At the end, most of today's webinar will be based on the demo, where we will connect one of the subscriptions to the NIL headquarter network. So I will show you what has to be done and how can this connectivity be established. So let's start. Why are we doing this? So what are the business drivers? Why would you want to connect Azure Cloud to your network? So if you remember from the last workshop, when you create a virtual machine or any other entity in the Azure, it can get the public IP address. So yes, your virtual machine is available through the internet, but sometimes you don't want to have available machine through the internet, but just, let's say, connect it through some secure mean that others cannot access it. So the first obvious is data center extension. So you extend your data center to the Azure. So the Azure just become another data center in your environment. So the next one is you start migrating. So you start migrating to the cloud, and typically you don't want to change the IP addressing. So you keep the IP addressing the same you had in your on-prem data center. And the third part is you migrated something into the cloud and something is still on-prem. So you want to have the Azure to look like to your users as it's your data center. So as an IT guy, you don't want to bother your users with the where and how to connect. They just connect. So the Azure allows you private virtual networks. So you can use private IPv4, IPv6 addresses. Today we will focus just on IPv4. And you can have statical or dynamic addressing. Let's say big picture, so how the Azure looks like. So here you see this is the Azure part. These are the servers, a lot of servers. And then they have different methods for protecting, for connectivity, for creating high availability. And then they have software-defined network ban. This is for those who are more in the networking, the BGP IS number, so where everything connects. So of course, this is now connected to different points into the internet, and also you can have, let's say, directly MPLS connectivity to the Azure. I will touch this later. As I said, we have Azure Virtual Network. As I explained before, bring your own network means bring your IP addressing, bring your subnets, bring your policies, bring your security. Then you have users, which basically they can connect from front end through the internet, through the public IP addresses. Of course, you can create their ACLs for security to allow connectivity, for example, just from your public IP addresses. But on the other hand, the part talking today is backend connectivity. So in backend connectivity, we have two primary connectivity options. One is express route, which will be explained a little bit more in the future slides, and the one is VPN gateways, which we will work also as a demo. So they have different features, and of course, with the better features, of course, it means higher price. So these are the options in a nutshell. Via internet, you can have either site-to-site VPN tunnel, or you can use, let's say, your laptop and connect as a VPN. You get a VPN client from the Microsoft, and you connect your subscription, your virtual network from your laptop. These are the internet access. So if you want to have a private WAN, then you use express route. Azure is also used for running Office 365, and also other services which are running in Azure can be connected through this express route. So not just the Azure, also the other services run by Microsoft or run by third party. So let's dive a little bit more to different types of connectivity. So the first one is point to site. Typically, everybody is using some kind of VPN client like Cisco AnyConnect, like Citrix something, like Juniper something, or Microsoft VPN. So you get the certificate, and the VPN client package, and then you just connect to your virtual network. The same way you would do with your company on-prem firewall or VPN terminator. If, let's say, for example, this virtual network is then connected with site-to-site to your headquarters, it can be also used as a VPN entry point. Okay, a little bit more graphics, how everything is done. So yeah. The next one, which we will be working most today, is site-to-site connectivity. You have some kind of hardware VPN, so either router or a firewall on your prem, or you have a Windows remote routing and access service. So Windows Server 2012 or Windows Server 2012 R2 are currently supported. Then on the other side, on the Windows Azure, you have VPN gateway, which can be either Microsoft or third party. And then you create a site-to-site IPsec tunnel, or you create a site-to-site IPsec tunnel via GRE. We'll explain this a little bit later. And then you have your normal subnets in the cloud. Regarding the VPN gateways, we have three different types of VPN gateways: basic, standard, and performance. High performance is called, connecting through the VPN. So the biggest difference is the bandwidth allowed. The VPN itself goes up to 100 meg if it's basic or standard. If it's high performance, it goes to 200. Of course, the difference is also price attached to it. If you are using the Express route, which I'll explain a little bit more later, then of course you have bigger, faster speeds. Before we go to the demo, let's talk about Express route, because Express route we cannot do the demo. So the Express route is the idea that you have a private connectivity between the Azure data center and your data center. Of course, you get all the benefits and also the higher throughputs. I would say the bigger advantage. So how the Express route is done? So Express route, you have to connect 3 points of the puzzle. So the first one is Microsoft, which is in the Azure data center. The second part is the Express route partners. So these are the service providers which offer connectivity from the Microsoft data center to your data center. So it can be either point-to-point optical line. For example, there are some providers which have the optical connectivity, DVDM, CVDM across Europe or across the world, I would say. And you can choose to have, let's say, if we're talking about Europe, I would say the optical lease line, at least one, let's say, DVDM color from Dublin, for example, to Ljubljana. That's one possibility. The second one is to go through Exchange. And then in that case, you get the Microsoft data center is connected via optical line to Exchange. And then you also connect just to the Exchange. And then typically MPLS VPN as a protocol is used. This is just a list of the Express route partners. So the slide is few months, few weeks old, adding a new every day. So I would say all well-known service providers are offering this kind of solution. So comparison a little bit. So we say IPsec VPN over internet, site-to-site tunnels. Then we have as an Exchange provider, and then the last one is as a network provider. So that's the three methods of the route I was explaining a little bit more before. Typically in the Azure, you have multiple ways to set up everything. So the same is with the virtual networks. So most, let's say, most useful, the one for showing the things is through the portal. When you start doing something, you go to the portal, click the things you need, configure them, and that's it. The next one, of course, is API and scripting. So we have REST API, PowerShell, network configurations. So whenever you do something in Azure, you get a script or commandlet, I would say almost commandlet, for future repetitive tasks. And the last one is the thing which is coming with Azure Resource Manager is that you get a script for deployment so that you can repeat later on. Before we start with the demo, I want to show you how our environment looks like. So we have Microsoft Azure portal, and we, as a network admin, will configure everything. Then we have some already subnets pre-configured, already configured in we have a network called Network West EU, and with the addressing you see here. Then we have NIL Office. We'll, let's say, use these two subnets to go through the tunnel. And we have a gateway at NIL Office. We have some DNS at NIL Office. And of course, we also need gateway subnet because in this case, in this scenario, we have to have some IP addresses for tunnel, and we'll get the public IP address in Azure for gateway and connect everything together. So configuring and then connecting, and we'll become an IT admin, and okay, deploy the package. We'll just do the APIs. So that's the, let's say, the picture how everything will be connected. So that's from the slide part of view. So now we'll go to the demo. We need a browser. Okay, so we have a browser, Azure portal. So that's the second one. That's if you're a system integrator, you have connectivity to a lot different environments. So now I'm logged into the new portal. You can do the network also from the old portal, but we will not show the connectivity from the old portal today because it will get depreciated, so it will not be used anymore. So the last time we already configured the resource groups and the two virtual machines. So we have virtual machine test 1 and we have virtual machine Linux test. Test 1 is Windows and Linux test is the Linux based. So we also have one network. I will create additional network just to show you. Okay, so network, virtual network, just to show you how you configure the network in the gateway, because each network can only have one gateway. So when you start configuring the network, you of course choose the deployment type. So resource manager or classic. Classic is the old one, which we said will not do today. So now we have to give the network a name. So we'll call it network 2. And now typically the addressing is not important, but in the case when you do the data center extension, you have to work with your IT guys to give you the IP addressing space, which is allocated just to you, that you don't have the duplicate IP addresses. So, okay, .0 missing. So we'll give it, okay, servers 2 subnet. Of course, it has to be in the same subnet as above. So 0, let's say 25. So we have this, we will not use /24. So with subscription, resource group, and location. So when we are satisfied, we just do create and validation successful, submitting for deployment, deployment started, and this is typically quite fast. Okay, so while we are waiting for this, okay, so is it already done? Deployment started. We can go back and start virtual network gateway. So the process of creating a virtual network gateway. So deployment succeeded. We go to virtual network gateway. Again, we have to give some kind of name. Gateway 2. Now we have the either VPN or express route. We don't have a lease line to Azure data center, so we have to use the VPN. The difference between route-based and policy-based is the type of the IPsec tunnel will be established. So route-based means I can influence the traffic going to the tunnel through the routing, either static routing or I can even do the BGP. Policy-based means I'm using access list. So basically, I say if you remember, the address is here. So if I do the policy-based, I would say on the NIL side, this is the subnet. On the Azure side, this is the subnet. So I would have to specify an ACL. So that's the policy-based. The policy-based is the direct IPsec configuration for those who were already configuring the IPsec. So now I have to attach gateway to the network. You see the network West EU already have the gateway, so I can only choose that one. I need the subnet, so it recommends the whole 24, which is a little bit too much. Okay, I just need 8 IP addresses enough. So public IP address, I have to have public IP address for that, because otherwise the gateway on the NIL side would have problems connecting to. So it has to be public, and I have to create a new one. You see here, it takes 45 minutes. So Now, one option is that we are wait for 45 minutes, and maybe I do some karaoke for you, but probably everybody would run away. Because of that, I already prepared a network, another network, the one which we created last time. You see the subnets, and there is a nice diagram. So you will see I have a gateway here already prepared, and I have our two machines. Another thing I want to show you with the gateway before we start configuring connectivity, there is no connections yet. So if I go back to the connections, I go to the gateway. Now, before I connect to the gateway, I want to show you, say, I will open PuTTY. So we have 2.166.96 and .5. That's the IP address of the Linux-based machine. So trying. It shouldn't connect because there is no tunnel yet. That's how it's supposed to be. So no connectivity yet. I can show you also my IP address, ipconfig. So you see I'm in this 192.168 range. So that's my IP address on my machine from where I'm doing the demo. So now, okay, so now we see that we can just check if that deployment started. So yeah, we'll not wait for that one. So we are now at this gateway and we go to the connections. We add the connection. Of course, we have to give it some kind of name, Azure to NIL. Type, there are different types. VNet to VNet means that I'm connecting to another virtual network, which is not the case in this scenario. So we are doing the IPsec side to side. I have to select the gateway. Local gateway. Local gateway means gateway at the NIL site. So I don't have it yet. I have to create a new one. Again, I have to give it a name, NIL. IP address 193.110.145.229. Addresses which will be on the NIL site. So we set this subnet, and then we have 193.7730/24. So you see I'm typing private IP addressing, public IP addressing. It really doesn't matter because it's up to you what kind of addresses are using in your data center. So let's type another one, which is typically in all networks. So let's say I'm also using 10 in my data center. So, okay, if something is wrong, I get a complaint. So I get a complaint here. So you see overlapping. So in the Azure, I'm using something from which is inside the 10. So 10.136. So oops, no 10s for me at NIL. So if I really want to use 10, I would have to specify exactly all the 10 subnets without this 10.136. So when I'm satisfied, I just do the OK. Let's see again. Okay, it's gone. Now the pre-shared secret. So this is the key, my favorite one for this kind of stuff. Slovenian guys will understand. For the rest is encrypted. Okay. Now we wait for connection. We have to wait for that part. So while we are waiting for this, we can, let's say, show you that another way to configure everything. So of course, another way is PowerShell. So I have a PowerShell opened here. And first, of course, I have to, as if you remember from the last demos, I have to log in. Now I created the credential and log in. So I'm logged in. I can show you that we have multiple subscriptions here. And for example, I have the gateway connections. So you will probably see one, which is the Azure to NIL. The second one is still being created. Sometimes it takes 40 minutes, sometimes it takes 5 minutes. You were warned that it will take 45 minutes. Okay, now the connection is already created, so we can look what's happening now. Okay, I closed a little bit more. So we are here, gateway to NIL, and we have a connection here. This site is unknown. So why it's unknown? Because we didn't do anything at NIL site yet. So I have a connection here. with both IP addresses. Now I have to go to the NIL side. Okay, I have an RDP. This is my gateway. So since this is a production, so I have 3 tunnels already established, and also some networks are already up and running. So in the old portal, you just get the PowerShell script where you just run the PowerShell script on your Windows machine, and that was it. So now you have to do a little bit more on your own. So I wrote somewhere the IP address. So we have this one. Let's double check if it's true. 13.95.223.160. Okay. PN, IC version 2. That was just the name. Now it's the IP address. The root packets. So we have to give the exact network into the Azure. If you do this wrong, the tunnel will not be established. So I said in the Azure side that I'm using 10.136.96/23. That means in this format 254 at the end, the third octet. So that's in the Azure. Okay, username I don't need, and finish. So now I've created the initial part, so I still have to change it a little bit. So okay, I can leave that here. So I don't use the user machine certificate. I use the pre-shared key. Okay, and networking, I can just use the IPv4. So I'm satisfied, and now I say connect. If everything is okay, you get connected. So you see, we are connected. Okay, 13, no packet yet up and run, and we have here the root. So let's see now, open again PuTTY, 10.136.96.5. That was the address. So yeah, it's open on the other side. See, I get a login prompt, Azure admin, and the password for that machine. Yeah, config. You see the address there. Let's see what we have in the DNS. Okay, so the DNS is now currently the Microsoft part. So if I do the ping www.nil.com, I get the public. So I go to our website, not to the tunnel, but through the internet. I would say still missing some part, because if you're not a network guy, you don't want to mess with the IP addresses. So you want to go, let's say, I don't know, some internal host, bfix.nil.com. It's not resolving bfix.nil.com. That one is internal server. So I have to do something about it. Okay. We can also see it's connected. So you see connected, and you see some data goes out and in. While we are talking about the data goes in and out of the tunnel, so beside the charge for the VPN tunnel, which is approximately for basic $1 per day, you have to also pay for the traffic going outside of Azure. So going towards your data center. It's not a lot, but have this in mind. So, okay, now I said DNS. So I go back to the network. I have a DNS servers here. So you see custom. I can say, okay, let's use my internal DNS servers. Saving virtual network. Still saving. You see the gateway is still being created. It will take a long time. Okay. So if I go back now to my Linux machine, the easiest way to do that for me, I would have to restart the networking. So if I look here, it's still the old one. The easiest way to do that is the boot. So I was disconnected. When the Linux machine is back, if everything is right, we'll get the internal DNS server. So I can show you also another 2 virtual machines there. We also have the Windows. So we'll use RDP. 96.4 Azure admin. IP config. That one is already IP config/all. it's still okay. Let's do, maybe if I do just the renew, if you remember from the last one, renew it. If you remember from the last time, all the addresses are given through the DHCP, even though if you have a static IP address. The way how it's done is that you get the static reservation in the DHCP server of the Azure. So let's wait for that one if it happens, but on the other side, let's try to reconnect if it's already alive. Yeah. Azure admin. Okay, more it resolves. You see the DNS has changed. So ping bfix nil com. It is resolving, but it's not pinging. Let's see. It's nil c. Ah no. Okay, so it's not bfix. We don't have bfix. That's the reason why it was not resolved. So you see now the www.nil.com was resolved to private IP address. So if the access would be allowed on the, let's say, firewall at NIL side, I could then ping the addresses, but it looks like it's not allowed on the NIL side. So one more thing, okay, I want to show. If we are already, okay, deployment started, so we still don't have the gateway. So one of the things I want to show you, another, I can just demonstrate, but I will not be able to finish it. So we have this gateway to NIL. So it would be good to have, let's say, also connectivity between two networks I've created. So network 2, so that the machines inside will be able to communicate. So one of the way to do that is add the connections, and let's say V2V. Let's give it a V2V, VNet to VNet. So it starts on gateway, this one, and then I would, when the gateway will be created, so you see here, provision state is updating, so I'm not allowed to. I would create a gateway between two virtual networks. The traffic between these two is free, so you don't pay anything. And this can be also done between the regions. So you can create your own private backbone, private network. So you have connectivity, let's say you have one virtual network in Dublin, one in Brazil, and then you can have your own connectivity through Microsoft network. So in the past, you have to do it through your headquarter office. So you have to create the connections to the headquarter and then connection to each side. So all traffic goes first from the one virtual network, let's say in Dublin, to the data center, in our case to Ljubljana, and then back to Brazil. So it the Microsoft charged me because I have the traffic going out of the Azure, and it was probably our lines are not so fast than Microsoft are. So now you just have this VNet to VNet, and the traffic goes directly. Okay, so discard it. The next part I want to show is a little bit more in the PowerShell. So let's use the PowerShell again. So we have the PowerShell here. What else can we do? So if I still go the get Azure virtual network connection, so we still see just one. We can also list all the networks. So all the networks are here. So you see our network West EU. Then we have, this is the subnet. This is the network we are using, address space. The DNS servers we just changed, and the subnet, one subnet we have here. We can create other subnets, but I just created one. So then is the network 2 with a new address space, and the gateway is not yet there, and also one subnet. If you want to see the gateway, so that before was the connection, we can see also the gateway, so the different command. So you see a lot of, you see now the gateway type. So we have the gateway type here is VPN, basic, and the second one is also basic. So one of the things, let's say, for example, if you want to change the gateway to the higher performance, so how can you do this, let's say, via automation. So first you create an object for the network gateway, and then you just use another command, which is resize, and instead of basic, you, let's say, use standard. So When you start this, it takes quite a long time, but of course you see it's PowerShell, so it can be automated. So for example, you can have a high performance gateway during the day, and then during the night you can change it back to basic. The price difference between the basic and the high performance is 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. So yeah, that's, let's say, a valid option. But when the gateway is changed, all the sessions will be disconnected. So be careful of that. So let's say I put the standard now, and we leave this. So we are still connected, let's say, with the virtual machine. We are still here. So still, but when the gateway changes, it will show us that, okay, an error, that Windows machine will also have to reboot the new DNS setting. But typically, you will set up DNS settings when you set up the tunnel. So you will not have the machines alive. Last part I want to show you is where you get more information. I mentioned that in the old portal, you get the automatic scripts already there. So now the Microsoft did it a little bit different. So here are the templates of the scripts. For example, if we go to Cisco ISR, let's say, is the most commonly used. So for those who know Cisco, so let's say we did the root-based. So this is typical Cisco configuration. So you see that is done for 10/8, and these are on-prem. So you just change the IP address, where you have your tunnel endpoints, configuration, okay, with the pre-shared secret, profiles, and the tunnels. Current set, I was looking, but I couldn't find, is this one, group 2. From my point of view, the group 2 is a little bit obsolete. I would put here at least group 7 or even more. Group 2 has quite a short key for encryption when you're sending the pre-shared secret across the net. So that's, let's say, for example, root-based. So you see there is a tunnel at the end. If you go policy-based, it's ACL. So it's an old, I would say. So it's typical. You see our security associations. So peer, address lists, and this is the second option. The same here. You have a configuration for a lot of other vendors. If your vendor is not listed here, you have the explanation how you configure your part of the gateway. For example, the Microsoft only supports the root-based, so no IPsec native. So here, as I said, is a PowerShell script. Again, you change the IP addresses and the network masks. Second thing I want to show you, so I was typing the PowerShell command. There is a list of all the Azure RM commands. So if those who are doing some network provisioning or some Azure stuff with the PowerShell before, so you see the difference is typically RM here inside. So you have RM, Resource Manager. So it's the same for the network, the same for the storage, so the same for the virtual machines, for login. So all the new commands get RM inside. So if you are used to the old commands, you can still, let's say, pretty much guess the new ones. So get gives you the information, set usually set the information, or resize, changes, modifies the config. That is what I have from my side. We will have another Azure webinar in 2-3 weeks. Thank you very much.